So this is for on chapter 2. So we shall start with the cell. So based on the organization of the cell is the pinaka-basic, the most basic part of the organism. So it is the basic part of the organism and sometimes it is kasi consider siya as the basic unit of life. Siya ang basic unit of life. So in cell, if we put cell 1 plus cell 2 plus another cell, and another cell, or whole bunch of cell, you will have already a tissue. And if a tissue grouped together performing a specific function, then you will have an organ. Then if this organ have cooperated with another organ with a slight similarities on the function or works together on a certain function, then that will be a system, organ system. Then if these organ systems are cooperating with each other, communicating with each other to, to arrive at all functions for the organism to function well, then that's already an organism. So that is the hierarchy or level of organization in terms in the organismic level. Ay, bakit ayaw niya mag-start? Okay. Cells are the basic unit of life as it was defined from your elementary years to your tertiary years. So it is alive because it acquires, it processes its own, it metabolize organic substances, it also multiplies on its own, and it contains also the genetic footprint of a certain organism. That's why tinawag siya na as the basic unit of life. It can live on its own. Either it can be a social group of cells or a unicellular cells. And all living organisms are made up of cells. Now, in cell theory, muna yung ingon, all organisms are made up of one or more cells. And the cells is the basic unit of all organisms because a single cell must derive from a pre-existing cell. So kung muscle cell siya, it should come from a muscle cell or it derives from a mesenchyme cell. And all mesenchyme cells differentiate into a specific cell. So those mesenchyme cells during embryonic development, I see it as a primary cells where all organs derived. So we had two types of, several types actually, several types of cell. And this is one way we are differentiated from each other. And this is also uh, a certain way, this is the character of all organisms na ma-differentiate siya into different kingdoms. Like we have Kingdom Munera, and the Kingdom Monera was also divided into two, Archaea and the bacteria, and another kingdom, Kingdom Protista, the unicellular organisms that act like an animal, and we have also the plants made up of plant cells, and so that is Kingdom Plantae, and another plant-like behavior, but they differ also in other aspect. We have kingdom fungia. And last one, we have kingdom animalia, where we belong. So, based on domains, if we're going to talk about domains, there are only two domains based on cell structure. So, we have the eukaryotic. So, you have here the left side. Ito yung eukaryotic. At saka ito naman sa kabila, a cell from a prokaryotic domain. Ang prokaryotic domain Example, we have the monerans and the archaea group and the bacteria. And the eukaryotic domain. So yesterday we talked about the domain. So ito yung basis of classification based on domains. So cell types based on cell structure. So ang eukaryotic have all these organelles, membrane organelles, and double membrane, may plasma membrane. The nucleus is highly distinct because of the nuclear membrane, in which dito sa prokaryotic cells, they don't have a nuclear membrane. They don't have membrane organelles. Ano yung mga membrane organelles? Okay, we have mitochondria in eukaryote. We have the Golgi apparatus, peroxisomes, lysosomes. We have also the vacuoles, and what else? Um, Endoplasmic reticulum, the rough and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, in which, as you can see, the prokaryotic cell on the right side of the diagram, it was only made up of genetic material, some ribosomes, and cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, which is the area of the cell. So there are only ribosomes. And if you're going to compare the sizes of this, size of the cell, eukaryotic cells are quite bigger compared to the prokaryotic cell. So what are the parts common of these two types of cell? First, both of them have cell membrane, they have cytoplasm. Organelles, only few. Both have ribosomes. Yan yung pinaka-distinct. Both of them have ribosomes. But other organelles, wala. It is present sa eukaryotic cell. DNA, yes, but in terms of structure of DNA, eukaryotes have double helix, while in prokaryotes, circular and linear. It is not double helix. It is a single DNA, and both of them are made up of DNA. So let's start with the prokaryotic as the simplest form of living cell. So it is a single-celled organism that does not have nucleus or membrane-bounded organelles, like I said before. So the DNA is locked in the cytoplasm. So, four classes of eukaryotic cells. So, I have already mentioned that we have the plant cells, animal cells, the protists, and the fungi. Mga fungi, they belong to a eukaryotic group. Now, cell differentiation. So, each cell, when we say differentiation, each cell perform a specific task. And like for example, in the epithelial tissues made up of epithelial cells of different form and shape. We have the squamous, the flat one, which is ideal for diffusion. And we have the columnar type, which is ideal for secretion and absorption. We have also the transitional type, in which the cell changes its shape based on osmotic pressure. So that is transitional epithelium. So we have another cells that ideally for movement, like we have the muscle cell. So muscle cells and involuntary type of cell, like what we have in the cardiac cell, because they have this Purkinje that keeps the cell move, but it is not found inside the cell. Okay. So all cells perform certain function to a multicellular organism. But in a singular, unicellular type organism, like what we have in protist, the organelles have specific function in order to communicate with other organelles in order unicellular organisms to survive. So first structure, we have the outermost, we have the cell membrane. Cell membrane holds the cell organelles and the cytoplasm together in place. So it also called a semi-permeable membrane. When we say semi-permeable membrane, it says that it doesn't allow uh, all molecules to in and out of the cell. It selectively allows some molecules that goes inside the cell and outside the cell. Later on, we will discuss yung membrane transport or the activities of the cell membrane. And all types of eukaryotic cell and the prokaryotic have this structure. So this is the primary protection of all organisms. Cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the watery gel or jelly-like substance, and this is the area where the organelles are situated. And transport, exchange of organic compounds happen in this area. And it also participates in division method, division of the cell. Mitochondria. Mitochondria, ang pinakasikat na organ, one of the famous organelles in eukaryotes because it is termed as the powerhouse of the cell. Murag siya battery generator because it generates a lots of energy called ATP or adenosine triphosphate. So, the number of mitochondria in the cell will also um, depends sa type of organism and the type also of organ because some organs have this number of cells, number of mitochondria per cell. And mitochondria also is a good source of DNA. Kung if we have to um, for fraternity test. Like for example, yung issues on Rafi Tulfo in action, yung taong grasa segment sa Rafi, yung nawawalang tao for 4 years. And there are 3 people claiming that they are the relatives of that person. One is claiming that it was her husband. Another one is claiming that it was her brother. And the third one which is situated in the same island that claiming that it was her cousin. So each undergoes DNA test. And since first method sa wife, it uses yung sibling. No. Yung mga children niya. Children at saka siya because they are likely related. Then second one using sibling compatibility, sibling resemblance. And the third one, they use the mitochondria, the DNA found in the mitochondria as maternal, as a source of maternal DNA. Because mitochondria, this is the uh, source of DNA in which it shows the relationship with, related to mother side. Yan. Yun ang ginagamit, mitochondrial DNA. So, it doesn't also serve as producing energy but also a good source of DNA sa paternity, sa mga testing, relatedness of relatives or what. Next, the nucleus, one of the primary important organelle also. And the nucleus controls the cell, the activity of the cell. It also the main blueprint of the organism because the nucleus contains the cell's DNA. So, kung anong characteristics ng organism, it was written in the DNA, and DNA is located inside the nucleus. Nucleolus, so is another area of the nucleus. It is the area of the nucleus. So it's responsible of making ribosomes. So aside sa main activity of the cell, the nucleus also producing ribosomes and proteins. Chromosomes. Chromosomes are inside the nucleus and made up of um, nucleic acids. So nucleic acids like thymine, cytosine, guanine, adenosine, and uracil. Uracil is found on bacteria, and cytosine is found on most eukaryotic cells. Nuclear membrane. So the nuclear membrane is present in all eukaryotic cells but not on the prokaryotics, mga prokaryote cells. So it surrounds the nucleus. And slightly also, it is porous in which the ribosomes and protein pass through, going to the endoplasmic reticulum. Vacuoles. Vacuoles are spaces in the cytoplasm where food and chemicals are stored. It is like fat on the turtle. Okay, vacuoles also varies from different cells. Some cells have large vacuoles, like what we have sa plants, and sa animal cells have lesser in size in terms of vacuole. So that's the difference between the plants and animal vacuoles. Endoplasmic reticulum. So endoplasmic reticulum, we have two kinds, the rough and the smooth. So in the endoplasmic reticulum, kung rough, it functions a certain synthesis. So endoplasmic reticulum is connected. So if you're going to draw a cell and to locate the endoplasmic reticulum, it should be near the nucleus because based on its function, it is coordinating with the nucleus in terms of ribosome synthesis, protein synthesis. So, corpus, endoplasmic reticulum, and nucleus. Okay, Golgi apparatus. Okay, question pala before we proceed kay Golgi apparatus. Which endoplasmic reticulum synthesize lipids and which synthesize proteins?
Um,
Hello?
I don't know, ma'am. I'm not so sure about my answer, but rough endoplasmic reticulum
Ang
ang nag-synthesize ng proteins.
and how about the smooth?
The smooth is for transportation.
Unsay gina-synthesize sa smooth?
Uh, lipids.
Okay. Lipids. So the smooth endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes lipids and proteins naman sa rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. Next, let's have Golgi apparatus is another organelle that cooperates with endoplasmic reticulum because as the nucleus synthesizes nuclear proteins, it passes through the endoplasmic reticulum. These proteins cannot go out directly to the cytoplasm. So, the endoplasmic reticulum will pack the nuclear proteins going to the Golgi apparatus. Now, si Golgi apparatus will receive all these proteins and mura siya LBC, nag-deliver, nagsusort, and nag-accept. So, Golgi apparatus will accept the synthesized proteins coming from the endoplasmic reticulum. And as it receives the proteins, it repacks the protein into vesicles. Then later on, these proteins enclosed in a vesicle delivers it to the direct organelle. So, the Golgi apparatus releases again the newly packed or newly repacked proteins to a designated target organelle. Yun yung part function ng Golgi apparatus. Okay, next. Vesicle. So, ang vesicle is a small sac that surrounds material to be moved into or out of the cell. Now, pwede i-carry ni vesicle ang waste ng cell or katong, di ba, si Golgi apparatus, ipapak niya yung proteins into vesicle going to the target organelle. Ribosomes. Ribosomes are found also in cytoplasm and attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. So, it also synthesizes proteins. Lysosome. Lysosome function as the cell recycling compartment. It also act as a defense system for the cell. So the lysosome contains digestive chemicals that helps break down food molecules. Now the lysosome will engulf niya ang foreign material, then as it engulfs and put inside the system, yung foreign material simply digested because of the enzyme inside. We have also peroxisomes. Peroxisomes also act like the same thing with lysosome. But sometimes, as you go na sa cell molecular biology, peroxisomes also determine cell death. Mura siya og timekeeper. Yeah, this is the time where the cell dies because it eats up other organelles. Pwede din siyang i-engulf niya itong tiny foreign material inside the cell and it could cause also cell death. So, wala na mention dire ang peroxisomes. Peroxisomes are present lang sa asam sila present. Plants, animals.
Animals, ma'am.
Animals. Wala sila sa plants. So, very good. Okay, next. Cell wall. Cell wall are only in plants and protist sa mga protozoans because some protozoans have cell wall. And cell wall also present din siya to some species of bacteria during unfavorable condition. So, cell wall, this is a protective organelle and highly observed in plant cells. So, they also fungi have this kind of organelle, but in terms to differentiate sa plants and fungi, between plants and fungi, they differ in composition. So, mag-differentiate lang sila sa composition. Even also sa mga prokaryotes and sa protozoans. Chloroplast. Chloroplasts are only in plants. Oh, no. Chloroplasts are also present in protozoans, but not on animals. So they contain chlorophyll. And chlorophyll have several types. Pwede Yung red, chlorophyll A, B, merong chlorophyll C. And each chlorophyll contains a pigment. Yung mga, kuan, chloroplast ang pigments. So, chlorophyll is present also in protozoans because there are some protozoans that act like a plant. Okay. Meron din yatang species of bacteria that has chlorophyll but they are rare. But protozoans may chlorophyll din yan. Especially katong mga chlorophyta, yung mga algae group. So, what are the difference between plants and animals in terms of cell structure? If you're going to recall, animals don't have cell, in terms of cell wall, animals don't have cell wall. Plants do. At the same time, yung mga protozoans, in terms of mga membrane-bound organelles, they have all this. Except in plants, they don't have peroxisomes. In terms of centriole, centriole was not mentioned in this PowerPoint. Centrioles later on is very important during mitotic division because it will create
Spindle
spindle
fibers.
fibers that puts the chromatin fibers in place. And this is only present sa animal kingdom. Centrioles are not present sa plants. Okay, next. Chloroplast. Chloroplasts are not present sa animals. So, chloroplast, so these are the pigments, present din siya sa mga protozoans. Vacuoles, plants have large vacuoles. Mga protozoans have lesser vacuole because highly active man ang mga unicellular organisms. So, these are the common organelles and parts of the cell. So, sana ma-review kayo and to know more the details sa mga cells, especially yung functions ng mga organelles, you have their Harley and Miller na zoology book to give you that other details na wala naman siya sa PowerPoint. Okay. So, next. So, sabtan. Any question? Any question? Wala? Okay, so kung walay question, let's move sa other topic. So, since we discussed already a part of the cell organelles and its function, let's move sa tissues. Now, di ba? 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 4 plus 4 equals 8. So, ganun din ang mga cells. So, in a multicellular organism, so we have two types of organism, unicellular organism and a multicellular organism. So multicellular organism, these are organisms made of millions of cells that group together perform specific functions. Sa unicellular organism, ito yung mga cells that can live on their own. So they live as one cell, like Euglena, amoeba, Didynum, Chlamydia, Giardia. So those are examples of protozoans. So let's proceed sa tissues. Okay, tissues composed of millions of cells working together. And tissues have, how many tissues do we have? Types of tissues.
4.
Ano yun?
Muscular tissue, connective tissue, nervous tissue, and ang isa kay sakit na. Kalimot ko sa isa.
Dapat ito ni mo siya malimtan. Di ka
Skeletal.
kalihok. Dili ka kalihok kung wala siya. Sa to imong giingon? Nervous, connective,
Nervous,
and
connective, and muscular.
oh, kinsa may nag-cover sa imo ha?
Epithelial tissue.
Kana. So, in order not to forget the four major types of tissues, imagine your house. Okay. The roofing, yung walls, parang cover mo siya. So, that is epithelial. Um, para ma-move ang house. Di man natin ma-move ang house, no? Ilahiyo na lang nato. Ikaw na lang gid mismo ang example. Kung i-example ka, ay imong body, kisay nag-cover sa imuha, mo ni mga epithelial. Kisay naghatag og shape sa imong body, si muscle. And para sa makalihok-lihok ka, makatransfer ka si muscle. Now, para dili mag-fall out ang imong mga organs and to keep your organs intact, nakapak, wala nahulog ang imong mata, wala nahulog ang imong ngipon, wala na detach ang imong joints, mura siya glue, nakapilit ang imong mga organs together. Imagine si connect. The word connect, connective tissue. And karon, para muandar ka na kay battery, na yung mga electrical impulses mo pass through sa imong body, we have the nervous tissue para mo react ka, para say action mo towards a certain stimuli. So, those are the major types of tissue. Karon, I have a recorded sa tissues. Teka ha, ako saan i-set. Murang nawala man. This is more on the major types of tissues. Then, isi-share ko ito sa inyo. Ambot lang kung, dito na ako, dito na ako i-check kung ma-share ba pati audio. Ay, sabaan. Kadali. Dili ni mao. Ay, kasabaan ba niya? Dili ikaw akong gusto. Ang ako ang recording. Klaro ang
Dili
ang
madungog,
audio.
ma'am.
Dili madungog. Teka ha. Di madungog. Dali lang. Saan nga niya? Magic share. Okay, magic share. Magic share documents. Di na lang. I-cancel ko na lang yun. PowerPoint ko na lang. Tissue. Tissue. Okay. Ay, ang dami kong dadaanan. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Hilig lagi ko mosulti og okay, no? Pila na kaya ang word na okay? Damo na gid. Next chapter. Okay, next chapter na ta. Kung sa dihang wala din na stop ang recording. Okay, actually sa libro na other references, it is chapter 5. But in Harley and Miller, it is chapter 3. So, dili ang tamukan sa chapters. Tissues are a group of similar cells that usually have similar embryological origin, and they are performing a specialized task. So, like for example, the muscle cells are ideal for movement because these muscles are highly active and they are moving. Sa epithelial naman, they don't move, but they allow substances in and out of the cell. So they are ideal for filtration, absorption, and some cells are, epithelial cells, when they die out, they harden or being cornified in form. So that is epithelial. Some also in connective tissues when organic salts are impregnated or deposited in that cell, it hardens. So we have the bone tissue. So people who are specializing in this discipline, they are called histologists. And the discipline that studies more on tissues, we have the histology. And you have histology in your fourth year level. Fourth year or third year, I don't know kung ano yung new revision ng mga subjects. So, four types of tissues. We have the epithelial, ideal for covering and lining, at the same time secretion, because you have there the examples of the glands. Connective protects, support, binds, and sometimes stores energy because we have the adipose tissue that serve as the storage of fats, and also provides immunity because we have specialized connective tissues represented by the blood components. Muscles, we have ideal for movement. And nervous transmits impulses that coordinates body activities. Mura siyang electrical connection that connects all these tissues together. Now, let's proceed sa first type, ang epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues are closely packed cells with little extracellular material. And a portion of these cells are exposed, or we call the apical free cells. So, mostly found on the surface area. And the rest are embedded on the inner part. Then, all epithelial tissues are connected sa basement membrane. The basement membrane serve as the boundary between the connective and the epithelial. And this is also the structure that receives nutrients and distributed sa mga epithelial cells. Not all epithelial cells. Later on, you will see nga, no? Cell junctions are plentiful, providing secure attachment among cells. So, na mga tight junctions, mga desmosomes that connects all epithelial cells. And epithelial kung ano na, um, baga na, they are avascular. When we say avascular, they are not connected to blood vessels. So, blood vessels are located in nearby connective tissue, and that's why si basement membrane, siya ang connected sa blood vessels and mga electrical impulses. That's why, 'di ba, kung titingnan natin dito, itong mga kalyo natin, kung if you want to pinch with a pin, yung callus portion of your skin, you will not feel anything. Kaya walang innervation, and when you pull the pin from the callus skin, no blood will come out. So, that is an evidence that it is avascular. At the same time, no innervation. In short, walay mga nerve endings naka-attach sa cornified skin. So, epithelial adhere firmly to a nearby connective tissue by means of the basement membrane. So, the basement membrane is very important kasi siya ang mag-deliver ng nutrients from the nearby connective epithelial cells. So, yung nearby epithelial cells are fast multiplying cells. So, as it forms, kaya siya fast ang multiplying cells that covers the other tissues and that will serve a protection of the organ. So this skin, our skin, are made up of several layers of epithelial cells. Okay, each epithelial cells have a high capacity for renewal. So it has a fast mitotic rate because kailangan niyang kumbaga, kung paspas mag-wear off ang ating surface skin because of rubbing, scratching, a part of the cells were removed. Labaw na katong mga tao na exfoliating. So you have already exposed third layer of your epithelial cells. Siguro na-expose na din na si stratum spinosum, which is already dangerous. Sobra ka exfoliation. So, si epithelial cells in the near to the basement membrane have to cope up yung mga na-remove or dead cells to perform its function, especially sa skin. Now, epithelial functions includes protection, filtration, lubrication. Lubrication because in the skin layers, the epithelial glands secretes substances. Muna siyang lubrication. Secretion found in glands, digestion, in guts, absorption sa gut area, excretion glands also, especially yung sweat glands, and the lining of the urinary bladder, transportation, lungs, sa mga alveolar sacs that allows the gas to pass through by diffusion, sensory reception, our skin, may yung first layer, then reproduction. So, those are ang daming function ng epithelial tissue. Okay. Covering and lining epithelium. Okay. Epithelial layers are arranged as simple epithelium, stratified epithelium, and pseudostratified epithelium. This is how the epithelial tissues are classified. One of the classification is knowing the number of layers. So the layers could either be single, stratified, and pseudostratified. When we say pseudostratified, actually, ano lang yan sila, single layered. But since the cells are overlapping with each other, it viewed as pseudo-stratified. Nagiging 2 layers, 3 layers, but actually single layer lang sila based on the attachment sa basement membrane. Kaya tinawag silang pseudo-stratified. And they are located specifically later on based sa mga samples ng microscopic tissues sa mga diagram na epithelium that I will show it to you. Okay. Epithelial cells also another category to classify them. Ang epithelial tissue based on cell shape. We have squamous or the flat one. We have yung parang box type or cuboid in shape. We have the cuboidal. We have long rectangular shape. We have the columnar. And the shifting of shapes from flat to cuboidal, we have transitional. So these are the four shapes of the epithelial cells. Classification is by number of layers and cell shapes. So, top layer, we have the simple squamous epithelium. Consists of single layer of flat cells. So, if you're going to combine yung cell type at saka yung number of layers, that's we derive sa mga names ng epithelial tissues. Number one, we have the simple squamous epithelium. Okay, endothelium lines the heart, blood vessels, and lymph vessels and forms the walls of the capillaries. So dito nakikita, or this is the organ where the simple squamous epithelium could be seen. So this is the location of the simple squamous epithelium. Okay, let's have, ito came from a lung. So this is only the squamous, simple squamous. Yeah, flat. And made up of one layer. After that, we have here the basement membrane. Okay, how do you know that it is a squamous? The squamous, based on the shape, flat. The location of the nucleus is centrally located. So beyond that layer, you have already the connective tissue. So based on the diagram, it came from a lung. This one. Surface simple squamous epithelium, another view, mura siya late yung previous diagram para lang naka-side view. Ngayon, top view of the cells. So, na mga muni ang itsura, polyhedral. Sometimes sa other diagram para siyang hexagonal or piatos. Just imagine na piatos. Next, we have the simple cuboidal epithelium. Consists of the single layer of cube-shaped cells. It is adapted for secretion and absorption. Majority found in glands. Sa mga glands siya nakikita. Ito, kidney tubules. Pwede din siya sa skin glands, sweat glands, mga parotid glands, submandibular glands, and they are cuboid. So simple columnar is another type of epithelium. Comes in two forms. Pwede ciliated and non-ciliated. Non-ciliated, walang cilia on top. So specialized cells containing macrovilli perform absorption. We have the goblet cells that secrete mucus. So mostly these are found sa small intestine. Ciliated simple columnar epithelium consists of single layer of ciliated rectangular cells. So imagine to compare the non-ciliated and ciliated. Sa ciliated para siyang rectangular box na pinatayo na may buhok on top. So yun. Single ciliated simple columnar. So this helps in movement. So we have here the simple columnar found in our gastrointestinal tract. So these are the goblet cells. Itong thin layer are called the cilia. Muni ang cilia. Mga structure. Ito, walang cilia dito. Meron pa microvilli surface. Cilia pa rin microvilli. Ito ang goblet. Parang drawing at ito naman yung actual microscopic tissue. Next, we have the pseudostratified epithelium. Only one layer but gives the appearance of many layers. Pseudostratified ciliated and meron din pseudostratified non-ciliated which has no cilia or goblet cells. Example, respiratory tract, mga bronchioles. So, makikita ito sa respiratory tract. So, you have here, this is the cilia that aids in the movement. Muna sa inyong phlegm, feel ninyo parang mura siya musaka, ang phlegm, kaya ginamove siya sa mga cilia. So, para siya, based on the diagram, ito gidraw, at this one is, ito yung microscopic slide. We have the longitudinal section. You will see na the cells are arranged likely in several layers, but actually one layer lang yan siya. Stratified epithelial tissue, at least two layers of cells named by the shape of the cell in the superficial layer. Stratified squamous epithelium, it is made up of several layers. Moni atong skin, and we have two types, the keratinized and the non-keratinized. Yung keratinized, where the keratin is developed on the cornified layer, and ito yung mga callus portion. Yung non-keratinized, ito yung area of the skin na less exposed to abrasion, friction. So, walang deposits of keratin. Like your face. Kung moingon mo baga mo og nawong, mura na siyang nakeratinized ang nawong. Nakeratinized ang face. So, ang face naturally non-keratinized. Unless if you want to scrub your face with sandpaper. I don't know what will happen. Okay. So we have the layers of the stratified squamous epithelium. So this is the basement membrane. Thin lang talaga ang basement membrane. So munang gitawag siya na basement membrane because it was located in the basal part or the basal area of the layer of epithelial cells, and next to it is already the connective tissue. Because it is called membrane because it's very thin. Para na siyang cellophane-like thickness. Now, the first epithelial cells, these are the active cells that multiply and receive all the nutrients coming from the basement membrane. And as the layer adds on, the cell dies and becomes flattened and nagiging cornified. So, ito yung nangyayari when the epithelial cells continues to multiply. It creates several layers. So, the stratified, another type of epithelium, stratified cuboidal epithelium consists of several layers of cells in which the top layer is cube-shaped. But this is only rare. And we have also stratified columnar epithelium, consists of several layers of cells, columnar, rectangular in shape, and it also rare like the stratified cuboidal epithelium. So we have here yung submandibular glands. Submandibular glands consist of stratified layer of cuboidal cells. Ito naman is yung sa tract sa penis, urinary tract, ureter man yata to. Okay, so it is made up of several stratified layer of columnar epithelium. We have also transitional, consists of several layers of cells whose appearance is variable. It depends on uh, the fluid inside the organ. So it changes its shape. So we have here the ureter and urethra. So they are found in our bladder. Kung the bladder is filled with water, then they become cuboidal in shape. But when the bladder is empty, then these cells also flattens. So, ito yung itsura pag hindi puno ng tubig. So, we have glandular epithelium. So, mostly consist of cuboidal cells. So, we have two kinds of glands, the exocrine gland and endocrine glands. So, when you say exocrine glands, secretes into ducts or directly into free surface. So, it releases the secretion directly to the free surface. So that is an exocrine gland. So one is mucus, sweat, oil glands, earwax, and digestive enzymes. Structural classification of exocrine could either be multicellular or unicellular. Like example ng unicellular glands, we have the goblet cells. We have also functions of cuboidal, sorry, we have the holocrine, merocrine, and apocrine. Okay, holocrine accumulates secretion in cells, then later on the cell dies. Then merocrine, most exocrine glands from secretion discharge through exocytosis. So, inside, ibabalot niya yung mga secretion niya, then it simply diffuses out from the membrane and the cell will not die. Apocrine gland secretion accumulate near the top, which pinches off to form secretion. So, apocrine, mag-accumulate siya sa surface, then later on, a portion of it will be removed. So, example, mammary glands. So, example ng holocrine, we have the sebaceous and oil glands. So, this is an holocrine gland. So, madisintegrate ang cells but another cell will develop. Apocrine, a portion of the cell was removed. Example to that, mammary gland. Merocrine, the contents will just simply diffuses out from the cell. Endocrine glands called ductless glands. So, ito yung mga glands na, kumbaga, hindi dumadaan sa tubo. So, they discharge their secretions into the intracellular fluid where it diffuses into the bloodstream. So, these secretions are hormones, chemical messengers, which regulate bodily functions. Now, let's proceed sa connected, the second type of tissue. Primarily more on to connect tissues to one another. So the connective tissue have the same embryonic origin from mesodermal cells called mesenchyme. Ang epithelial they derived from ectoderm in origin. The functions of the connective tissue, binding, attachment, support, protection, insulation, storage, and transportation. Marami din siyang functions. So, general features, which is not found in other tissues, they have matrix or the ground substance fibers. Excuse me. So, it is called the matrix. And this is not found sa epithelial tissue. So, ito yung unique din sa kanila. It does not occur on free surface such as linings except for the joint cavities which are lined areolar connective tissue. And except for cartilage, it has a nerve supply because cartilage don't have, it is avascular and wala din siyang nerve supply. And cartilage is one of the specialized connective tissue together with the bone tissue. Okay, usually highly vascular except for cartilage and tendons which have small blood supply. Matrix may either be fluid, semi-fluid, gelatinous, fibrous, or calcified because blood is a fluid type. Okay, gelatinous, usually secreted connective tissue cells except for blood. So, and cells usually divide like also with the epithelial cells. Okay, so cells of connective tissue. Immature cells name end in blast. So these cells can reproduce and form the matrix. So pwede odontoblast, ameloblast. So those are types of cells. Matured cells names end in site. So kung immature pa yan siya, ang ilhanan sa suffix na word is blast. Pag matured cells, you will, the suffix means last syllable, site, then it indicates that the cell is mature. Like osteocyte, chondrocyte. So, chondrocyte for cartilage cells and osteocytes for bone. Fixed cells appear in tissue in stable numbers. Wandering cells found in tissues only in response to infection or injury. So, cells in the tendon, cartilage are fixed cells. Wandering cells are yung mga blood components. So, they transfer from one area to the other. Matrix baby flu, fibroblast. This is another fiber found in connective tissue which cannot be found sa epithelial. So, most common type of fixed cells, macrophages, develop from monocytes, phagocytes, bacteria, or debris. This is called the wandering cells. Mast cells are found along blood vessels and produce histamine, which dilates small blood vessels during inflammation. They contain heparin, an anticoagulant, and also involved in allergic response. Okay, cells specific to a particular type of connective tissue. So, adipocyte found only in adipose tissue. So, when we say adipocytes, these are known as the fat cells. Osteocytes, na-mention ko niyan, bone cell. Chondrocytes, the cartilage cell. Leukocytes and erythrocytes, they are the hemocytoblasts. They derive from hemocytoblasts, the blood components or the blood cells, mga cells sa blood. Fibers. We have, na-mention na yung fibrocyte, yung fiber cells. Another, we have collagen fibers made up of collagen, a certain type of protein. And they're found sa tendons, or mostly sa mga other tissues like dense irregular connective tissue and cartilage. Elastic fibers composed of protein called elastin. They are flexible and highly tensile strength compared to collagen. And they are also made up of glycoprotein framework. So they are very stretchy and flexible. So they provide strength to tissues but allow the tissues to be flexible and stretchy. That's why they are usually found sa mga areas na highly movable, your ear, pinna of the your ear, sa skin also, blood vessels, and lungs. So based sa electron microscope, ang collagenous, here you have the pink fibers or either orange depending on the dye. But usually sa elastic fibers, sa mga certain type of dyes, they become darker, either blue or black. So, ito yung elastic fibers. Reticular fibers are composed of collagen and glycoprotein. They provide support and form loose networks of fibrous tissue. So, makita na sila sa mga lymph nodes and spleen. Ground substance that maintain a variety of large molecules. Some are which are complex combination of polysaccharides and proteins. Some of these contain hyaluronic acid, chondroitin, sulfate, keratan sulfate. So other molecules in a matrix are made up of adhesion proteins. That's why para silang paste to provide connection and also the exchange of materials. So let's have the types of connective tissue. So we have the loose connective tissue, or we call the areolar, contains primarily more on the fibroblast, but also contains macrophages, adipocytes, and some blood cells. So makita ni sila sa lucent portion, like under the skin, so near sa dermis. Muna itong hypodermis kasi naman siya adipocyte. The ground substance of this fluid, semi-fluid, ano naman eh. Okay, next. So the ground substance could either be semi-fluid, fluid, or gelatinous. And they have this enzyme called hyaluronidase. So it is an enzyme produced by WBC, sperm, and some bacteria. So ito yung way through this enzyme, it can speed the passage of drugs and fluid through the tissue. Kung na-inject sa atua, this will help us na ma-diffuse ang medicine. So we have the elastic fibers, the darker fiber. This is the collagen, which is likely fader in color. This is fibroblast. So this is the immature fiber. Adipose tissue cells are made up of adipocytes or fat cells, specialized in storing fat. Adipocytes are tightly packed at very little matrix, so they accumulate under the skin and yellow marrow of long bones. Function in energy reserve, insulation, protection, and support. Muni ang nag-comprise sa atong mga bilbil. Muni ang nagpadako sa ato ang tummy. And this is how they look like. Mura silag mga ring. Mura silag mga cells na walay sulod. Actually, naa sila'y sulod. Kung ating i-draw, you have here the nucleus. Para talaga siyang ring. If you have to get one cell, para siyang engagement ring. It looks like an engagement ring. This is the diamond, represent the nucleus of the cell. Now, let's proceed sa reticular connective tissue. Consists of reticular fibers and fibroblasts and forms the supporting framework of the cells in the liver, spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. So, be mindful sa mga area in which they are located. So, para siyang grapes. So, if you want to recall that one, reticular looks like a grape. The grapes are connected in the tiny branches. Next type, dense regular connective tissue, made up of collagen fibers arranged in parallel or arranged orderly. So which makes this tissue flexible but resistant to stretching. Fibroblasts are found in rows between the fibers. Um, Organs, tendons, and ligaments. So they are found sa mga joints, mga movable joints. And the blood supply is poor. So this is how the dense connective tissue looks like. You have there the collagen fibers and ang fibroblast kaning mga dark portion. Dense irregular connective tissue also has collagen fibers and fibroblasts, but the arrangement of the fibers are irregular. Para silang nagpapatong-patong and the cells are not aligned together. So the tissue usually forms sheets and resists pulling in many directions. That's why when you pull your skin, hindi agad-agad yan nagsasage. So they are found in heart valves, around the cartilage, bone muscle, dermis of the skin, and some organs. So this is how the dense irregular connective tissue looks like. Ito galing ito sa dermis. So after sa epithelial tissue. Next, the elastic connective tissue consists of elastic fibers and fibroblasts. They are usually found sa lungs, walls of the arteries, bronchial tubes, and attachment between the vertebrae. So, itong dark, thin projections, mga parang hair-like projections, they are called the elastin, the elastic fibers. Now, let's proceed sa specialized connective tissue. Okay, the cartilage is the dense network collagen fibers. Actually, maraming types ang connective tissue. So it gives strength and elastic fibers. The matrix contains chondroitin. The cells is called chondrocytes. Are found inside the lacunae. And the surface of the cartilage is surrounded by perichondrium where blood vessels are located. Naturally, cartilage is avascular or no blood supply. So this is example of a chondrocyte, but the actual features the diagram below. So this is the chondrocyte situated in the matrix, clear matrix. Now the cartilage have three types. We have the hyaline fibrocartilage and the elastic cartilage. Hyaline cartilage or crystal, most abundant cartilage. Especially kasi ito yung cartilage during embryonic development, sila ang una nag-develop before the bones. So, pwede ang bones galing sa hyaline cartilage due to its deposits sa kanilang matrix. Now, the hyaline cartilage developed first during the embryonic development. And before you grow up, ang inyong bunbunan dito, at first, it is only made up of hyaline cartilage. So, it is flexible, allow movement, reduce friction, absorb shock, and provide support. And it is important to bone growth and repair. Okay. Ito medyo darker ang staining. So, if you're going to compare it with other cartilage, see the matrix is clear. No other fibers. And these are the chondrocytes enclosed in a lacuna. So, para siyang capsulated cells. Imagine, capsulated cells, as cells inside a capsule. Next, asa sila makita? They are located sa rib portion or near to the attachment of the bone. Long bones, yan, end of long bones. Okay. Next, we have the elastic cartilage. Has chondrocytes in the network of elastic fibers. The elastic fibers are made up of elastin, a certain type of protein. It maintains the shape of the organs such as epiglottis, larynx, auditory or the eustachian tubes, and external ear, yung your pina of the ear, ito. So, it is made up. Kaya, you're going to pull that one, di ba? Elastic. Paborito yan ng elementary teacher ninyo. Pero ngayon, hindi yan pwede gawin. Okay. Based on sa microscopic slide, sa right, that is the actual microscopic um, appearance ng elastic cartilage. Ito yung hairy. Imagine, if you're going to compare a hyaline cartilage, then lagyan mo na siya ng buhok-buhok outside the lacuna, then that is already elastic cartilage. So, murag kung sa ano pa, istoryang kanto, ang bulbulo na cells, ang bulbulo na cartilage cells, di ba? Padili lang yun yung makalimtan. Make fun of it. Ang mabuhok, unsa ba inyo pagkakuan niya, pag-recall, para sa kuha, bulbulo ni siya na cells. Muna di na ako siya malimtan. Para ma-remember na ako, pag wala na ganin ay bulbul, si hyalin na. Pero kung naangin yung mga bulbul sa iyang gilid, walay pang shave, muna si elastic cartilage. Next, fibrocartilage contains visible bundles of collagen fibers and combines strength and rigidity. Also act as a shock absorber. So, na mo idea, shock absorber. They are only located in the specific area. So, it is found in the pubic symphysis. So, naa sa pelvic girdle, intervertebral disc. So, between sa likod, sa inyong vertebral bone, in between to that, menisci or the cartilage pads in joints. So, pero ang pinakasikat is yung intervertebral disc. Mas marami dito. And that is usually makikita sa mga microscopic slides. Okay, ito yung fibrocartilage. Mura siyag mais. Para sa kuha, mura siyag mais. Kamu, para sa inyo, unsa siya. Murag, kung imo siya tan-awon sa iyang microscopic slide, para siyang onion. The arrangement of the cells looks like the onion root. Di ba? Kung nakakita na mag-onion root, ma-associate niyo siya. So, that is fibrocartilage. Sa other samples, dito marami ito. Near the lumbar section. Dito nakuha ito sa lumbar section. So, ito yung blue representing the fibrocartilage. So, it is in between the vertebral bone. Now, next type special connective tissue, you have the bone. One of the hardest connective tissue. The osseous tissue consists of collagen fibers, flexibility, mineral salts, deposited in the matrix that makes the bone hard, and the cells are called osteocytes. So, it is also covered with periosteum and lined with endosteum. And the Haversian system, it is a canal in which to support the bone cells. And this is also the structure that allows the blood and some innervation to connect with the bone cell. Since the matrix hardens, so the Haversian canal, para siyang routing system ng mga nerves and blood vessels to deliver and to transport the impulses. So, based on microscopic cross-section, Cross-section man ni siya. So, this is a cross-section. So, we have here yung parang, ano, di ba? Parang black, I don't know kung sa tawag ninyo, elliptical black shape surrounding a darker black circle at the center. So this is the Harvasian canal in which the blood vessels, the nerves passes through. And since matigas ang matrix, how will this structure, the blood vessels and innervation, will connect to the bone cell? With the help of these tiny projections, parang root-like projections connecting from lacuna to lacuna or directly attached to the Havasian Canal. This is called canaliculi. Canaliculi is a tiny projections that connects to the Havasian Canal, and this is also the structure where the nutrients and blood's nervous innervation will pass through, connecting to the bone cell. So, inside the lacuna, you have already the bone cell, the osteocyte. Para din siyang cartilage na mura siya gi-encapsulate. Okay, next we have the blood. This is a liquefied portion of the connective tissue. So, vascular tissue consists of plasma and form elements like erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. Functionally, it cells transport oxygen and carbon dioxide and carry on phagocytosis kasi they have the macrophages. Participates in allergic reactions and provide immunity and bring about blood clotting with the help of the platelets. So this is the blood composed of platelet. So we have here the platelets. Maliit lang ito. This is the intracellular fluid called the plasma. And itong circular pale color, you have the monocyte or the red blood cells. And the purple one with different nuclear shape, ito yung white blood cells. Another type of white blood cells. Now, let's proceed to the third type of tissue. And we have three types. The muscle tissue. The muscle tissue have three types. We have the skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. And these three muscles were classified based on arrangement of fibers, shape of the cell, innervation, control, um, speed of contraction, resistance to fatigue, and the movement. What else? In terms of location and number of nucleus inside a cell. So these are the categories that differentiate the three types of cells, muscle cells, muscle tissue. Correct. Okay, first type. We have the skeletal muscle. Okay, the skeletal muscle based on cell shape, elongated, and it has a blunt end. Now, in each cell, it consists of several number of nucleus. The contraction of this muscle is fast, but the resistance to its fatigue is very low. So, it is not uh, resistant to fatigue. But the contraction is fast, that this allows you to move from one place to the other. In terms of location, it is attached to the bone. Again, attached to the bone. Do not answer na the bone because the bone is a connective tissue. So, kung sabihin natin, it is attached to the bone, not the bone. Okay, what else? Innervation or nervous control, it is voluntary. So, You can control at your will. If you don't want to move, then do not move. One good example of this muscle is the gastrocnemius zygomaticus muscle. Zygomaticus muscle, or known as the smiling muscle. The muscle obricularis oris and the muscles attached to your skull. We have the temporalis. Those are example of skeletal muscles. Okay, next we have the cardiac muscle. Based on the diagram, the cells are branching in shape, cylindrical but branching, or sometimes it is called as syncytial. They have one nucleus per cell because even though it is branching, it has only one nucleus. Okay, next, blunt end like the skeletal. And in terms of arrangement, it is stratified also. Okay, movement. Moderate ang contraction. Resistance to fatigue, it is also moderate. Innervation, innervation is involuntary. You cannot control it at your will. So imagine kung ma-depress ka, kung kaya mo tong i-control tong muscle na to, patay. Dami nang namamatay ngayon. Because sabihin lang na my heart will not move on. Eh, hindi talaga mag-move ang heart. Kaya, why si God? He make it as involuntary in control para walay magpakamatay dayon og dali-dali. Okay, next. What else? Mhm. Location. The heart is the primary location of the cardiac muscle tissue. Next, we have the smooth muscle. Okay, based on the appearance of the muscle cell of smooth, spindle, spindle shape. Some books would say needle-like, pointed at both ends. At the same time, arranged in parallel or smoothly arranged cells. One cell, one nucleus per cell. The contraction. The contraction is very slow. And in terms of resistance to fatigue, highly resistant to fatigue. Where can we find this type of muscle? GIT tract. So the gastrointestinal tract. Nuclear innervation. We cannot control this by our will, so it is involuntary in control. So that is the characteristic of the smooth muscle tissue. Next, we have the last type of tissue, the nervous tissue. Nervous tissue, we have the neurons, the dendrites. In the nervous tissue, the primary cell are the nerve cell. The nerve cell consists of the three parts. We have the dendrites, the cell body, and the axon. So, if you want to imagine that, imagine a flower with one stem and a root. The flower will serve as the cell body. The axon is like the stem, and the dendrites are the roots of the flower. Neuroglia is the protective and supporting cells of the nervous tissue. But in actual drawing diagram of the neuron, we have here the neuroglial cells. These are the tiny cells. So this is the cell body. So this is a neuron. Then cell body of the neuron. Okay. So that's the end of the tissue. And asa makikita ang mga neurons sa brain? Mga nerve endings sa different distributed in the different parts of the body. So any question? Any question? Natulog na sila.
So far, ma'am.
Mental for ma'am.
Oo, ma'am.
So so
Gising na
by
gising.
tomorrow, are you ready for the quiz? Ay,
Ay,
katawa na eh.
ay ma'am, ma'am, ma'am.
React. Oh, napukaw na, napukaw na.
Ay ma'am, ang PPT ma'am i-upload nimo?
Ang PPT na sa YouTube.
Okay po.
And para po mabasa po mo sa PDF, ay, mura kung ihatag na ko ang PPT, mura na dili na mo mamasa sa sa YouTube, sa PDF. So, kung wala na may question, so,